So, today we're diving into one of the most powerful and honestly heartbreaking stories in world literature. We're talking about the final chapter of Iran's greatest hero, Rostam. It is a story packed with jealousy, betrayal, and a fate that even the mightiest warrior just couldn't outrun.
Okay, so to really get the weight of this story, you first have to understand who Rostam was. The epic's own author, Ferdowsi, lays it out plain and simple. Rostam wasn't just a hero, he was the hero, the absolute pinnacle of creation, the ultimate defender, a legend whose name echoed for centuries.
And you know what's so fascinating? You can actually feel the author's pain in the text. Ferdowsi, the poet, seems to just rush through this part of the story. The writing is short, it's clipped. It's almost like he couldn't stand to linger on the death of this character he'd spent his whole life building up. He's basically telling us from the very beginning, this is gonna hurt. So where does a tragedy like this even begin? Well, it's not on some epic battlefield, nope. The seeds of Rostam's doom were planted right at the very beginning, in a cradle, with the birth of his own half-brother, a boy named Shagha.
So, picture this. Rostam's father, the great Zal, has a son with one of his bondmaids. The baby is beautiful, but when the astrologers are called in to read the stars, what they see is just pure darkness. They predict that this child, this little baby, will be the instrument of doom for his entire family, wiping out the heroic bloodline that had protected Iran for generations.
And this right here, this is what sets the whole tragedy in motion. On one hand, you've got Rostam, son of a princess, a celebrated hero, a living legend. On the other, you have Shagad, son of a servant, pretty much forgotten, sent away to grow up in Kabul. This huge gap in their status becomes the perfect soil for the poison of envy to take root.
So yeah, years go by. Shagad grows up completely in his famous brother's shadow. And that envy, when it gets mixed with the greed of another man, well, it sparks a conspiracy to do the impossible, to bring down the unkillable hero.
You've got two plotters, each with a really powerful reason to act. The king of Kabul, he's just sick and tired of paying money to Rostam every year. And Shagad, who's now married to the king's daughter, he sees his chance. He basically says to the king, let's do this. Let's trap him and get famous. He thinks the only way to build his own legacy is to tear his brothers down. And their plan? Wow. It's just as sneaky as it is brilliant. Step 1. The king insults Shagadan in public. Step 2, Shagadan pretends to be humiliated and runs to his big brother for help. Step 3, Rostam, who is fiercely protective of his family's honor, completely loses it and storms off to Kabul. And finally, Step 4, the trap, a series of deep pits dug on a hunting trail, filled with swords and covered up so no one can see them. And this is where the story gets truly heartbreaking. You see, it's not a monster or some enemy army that's going to defeat Rostam. No, it's his own best qualities, his code of honor, his loyalty, his love for his family that are going to be turned against him like a weapon. And of course, it works like a charm. The second Rostam hears his brother has been dishonored, his famous temper just explodes. He swears he's going to march over there, kick the king of Kabul off his throne, and put Shagad in his place. He's walking right into their trap. And this is where Shagad just plays him like a fiddle. He says to Rostam, an army? Come on, man. You're Rostam. Your name alone is enough to terrify them. He's playing right into Rostam's legendary pride, and by doing that, he makes sure the hero shows up all alone and totally vulnerable. So Rostam arrives, and the king of Kabul puts on this whole act, begging for mercy. And Rostam, being the noble hero he is quick to forgive him. To kind of seal the deal, the king suggests a big hunt, which is Rostam's favorite pastime. And just like that, the trap is fully set. And just like that, all the pieces are on the board. The hero is isolated, his guard is totally down, and he's riding side by side with his betrayer, heading straight for a path that was built for one reason: to kill him. But wait, there is one soul who senses the danger. Rakshesh, Rostam's brilliant, loyal horse of many, many years. He smells it, the freshly turned soil covering the pits. He rears up, he stops dead in his tracks. He is trying with everything he has to warn his master about the threat he can't see. The animal knows something is wrong. And this is where the poet, Ferdowsi, just stops the action to give us this incredible line about fate. He's basically telling us that when your destiny arrives, It doesn't matter how smart you are, your judgment fails, your wisdom gets cloudy, and a hero will walk willingly toward his own destruction. Tragically, Rostam completely misreads the warning. He just thinks his horse is being stubborn. He's impatient, he wants to get to the hunt, so he does the one thing you can't imagine him doing. He whips his faithful companion, forcing the terrified Raksh to step onto that treacherous ground. The ground opens up. In a single, horrifying second, the greatest hero the world had ever known, and his legendary horse, they just vanish. They plunge into the darkness, onto the blades waiting below, and everything goes silent. But if you think the story ends there, in that pit, you don't know Rostam. Even impaled, even dying, he is still Rostam. And his final act is going to be one of pure calculation, strength, and terrible, terrible justice. With a strength you just can't imagine, Rostam pulls his broken body out of that pit. He looks up, and through all the pain, he sees Shagad. And in that one look at his brother's face, he gets it. He understands the whole thing. He knows. And this is where Rostam, even at death's door, proves he's a genius. He looks at Shagad and makes one last request. He says, "Hand me my bow. I don't want the lions to eat my body when I'm gone." It just sounds like he wants to die with a little dignity. Shagad, he's laughing, right? He thinks he's won. But deep down, he is still terrified of his brother, even a dying version of him. So he agrees, he hands over the weapon, but he's too cowardly to even stay close. He quickly ducks for cover behind a giant ancient tree. But Rustam's will is just unbreakable. As Shagad hides, Rustam uses the absolute last ounce of energy in his body to draw that legendary bow. He lets the arrow fly. It screams to the air. It punches right through the thick trunk of that old tree, and it pins the traitor Shagad right to it. And with his revenge complete, Rostam speaks his final words, thanking God for giving him just enough strength to deliver justice before he died. He might have been betrayed by his family and by fate, but he did not die a victim. No way. He died a hero who settled his own accounts. And that kind of leaves us with this final thought, right? Rostam's entire life was this incredible saga of strength, but his death was a masterclass in sheer force of will. It really makes you wonder what defines a legend. Is it the epic story of their life, or is it the focused, powerful way they choose to face their final moments?